Good enough. Well, good evening, good evening, good evening, Facebook family and friends. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am Monica Smith. I am a member of the Advisory Council for Roots of Justice. Roots of Justice is an organization dedicated to providing anti-racist strategies and tools for educating, organizing, and renewing persons, institutions, and systems for liberation. Welcome to Black Women Talk Back. I am here with 4 esteemed Black women. They refer to themselves as the Elder Black Women of the Roots of Justice Collective. As 2022 comes to a close, you and I will have the privilege tonight of hearing these women reflect on what they have learned in the more than 20 years of their anti-racism journeys. The highs, the lows, their bodies, anti-Blackness in academia, the pastorate, restorative justice work, in leadership, and practices that have led to self-care and healing. This is a lot. We have an ambitious agenda, and so we're going to get right to it. Let's begin with introductions. I've asked each of the women to introduce themselves by telling us their name, their years with Roots of Justice, and briefly why she does this work. Let's please start with Ms. Michelle Amster.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be here. My name is Michelle Armster, and I have been with Roots of Justice for at least 20 years. This work is important because it's work that is about not only healing of working towards healing and justice in our society, but as I do this work, I'm working on healing and justice for myself. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Regina Shan Stoltzfus.
Hi there, my name's Regina, and I have been with Roots of Justice since its predecessor organization, Damascus Road, that started in 1995. And I do this work because I believe that it is possible to function in this racist system as an anti-racist. It's possible for us to pay attention to systems and structures and reframe narratives. Will we see a completely anti-racist world? I don't know, probably not. But in the meantime, we do what we can, and I do it for our children, all of our children.
Great, thank you for that. Calinthia Dowdy.
Hi, folks. I am Calinthia Dowdy, and I've been with Roots of Justice for just about, I think next year will be 20 years. I think I joined the team in 2003. And, you know, I joined Roots of Justice. I didn't know it at the time, but I was kind of running for or doing Damascus Road, it was called, actually, when I joined. I was running for my life because I had been, I found myself working, teaching in predominantly white Christian institutions, and something was happening to me. And so I needed a community of people. And so I went through the Roots of the Damascus Road training, as it was called then. And I was even there in, was it 95 or 97 when our co-founders, Regina Shan Stoltzfus and Tobin Miller Shearer, founded Damascus Road and the seeds of that in Chicago. I think that was 95 or 7, right? So, and that was a shout out for you, Regina, as a co-founder of the organization. But I needed a community. And so my original reasons for joining were very self-centered. And then over time, as I began to grow into this work, I realized that what I was feeling, other people of color were feeling as well, and especially other Black women. And so I began to understand this as a more collective work. And I do it because I have to. I have to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Mate Yvonne.
Yes, thank you, Monica. And ladies, I guess I've been on I remember like 1998 or so, taking the first training, and then we established a team within our church. And then I think I formally joined the team soon after that. But it's been a long time journeying with these ladies. And the reason is just that injustice has to be fought against. I mean, in my communities and schools, something has to be done. So I'm one of those advocates. I've been a youth advocate for like ever. And so trying to find justice for them, dismantling the school to prison pipeline, all has been part of this journey. And learning that racism impacts us internally as well as externally has been the drive to continue educating and sharing the truth. And one of the things I'm learning now is to defy the lie and to express what the first harm, stolen land, and stolen labor, and our second harm, stolen land, but to express those truths widely to our people so all of us can be free. Thank you.
Wow, such powerful introductions and powerful reasons behind why you do the work. I affirm each of you and your work, and thank you for sharing. Speaking of affirmations, this week, Trevor Noah affirmed all Black women. And I want us to begin with his shout out to Black women. I think we have a short clip. We'll watch that. And then on the other side, I'd like each of you to respond to that. Can we bring up that clip?
And this is random for some, but special shout out to Black women. I've often been credited with, having these grand ideas of people like, oh, Trevor, you're so smart and and then I'm like, who do you think teaches me? Who do you think has shaped me, nourished me, informed me? From my mom, my grand, my aunts, all these Black women in my life, but then in America as well. I always tell people, if you truly want to learn about America, talk to Black women. Yeah, because unlike everybody else, Black women cannot afford to f around and find out. Black people understand how hard it is when things go bad, especially in America, but any place where Black people exist, whether it's Brazil, whether it's South Africa, wherever it is, when things go bad, Black people know that it gets worse for them. But Black women in particular, they know what shit is, genuinely. People always be shocked. They'll be like, why do Black women turn out the way they do in America? Why do they vote the way? Yeah, because they know what happens if things do not go the way it should. They cannot afford to f around and find out. And to Black women who have taught me, all of them, the scholars online, the authors, everybody, the Roxanne Gays, the Tressie McMillan Cottums, I'll remember the names, the Zoe Tamudzis, the brilliant, brilliant women have taken the time to inform me, to educate me, to argue with me, the Tarana Burks who, laughed with me, talking about everything from sexual assault to just what life is like. Yeah, man, I'll tell you now, do yourself a favor. You truly want to know what to do or how to do it, or maybe the best way or the most equitable way, talk to Black women. They're a lot of the reason that I'm here, and so I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to every single one of you. This has been an honor. Thank you.
Whoa, I know, snap, snap, snaps for that. Let's just get right to it. Whoever feels led to go first, when you saw that earlier this week or just now, what is it that resonates with you about that?
I was brought to tears the first time I saw it and close to now. And one of the things that comes to mind is what one of the founders of the Black Lives Matters movement said: when Black people get free, everybody gets free. And it resonates with what Trevor Noah just said. It's like, we know what's about to go down. And so it's everybody show up, all hands on deck. Let's do this, because if it's bad, it's going to be worse for us.
Yes, well, you know, one of the things that that young man that shot out, it was like, yes, and I agree, talk to Black women, but pay us. Because that's been an issue. That is a problem. That is a concern. You know, I'm trying to control my language. So, you know, I just recall being in seminary and making a statement in one of these classes, and this white woman turned to me, but well, could you just help me understand? And I'm like, no, I am not your mammy. You cannot have my titty. Figure it out for yourself. I mean, it is, and so I'm saying, like, yes, talk to us, but pay us. Don't think you can get our golden milk for free. So, you know, so, and that's just one of the things that brings to me, yes, but pay us.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Michelle. I think, you know, I used to, when I was teaching, at least teaching consistently, one of the things we used to talk about as it related to viewing the world and seeing the world, who is seeing most clearly was kind of one of the questions. And I remember, I don't know if it was a Toni Morrison interview or somebody writing about Toni Morrison and the Bluest Eye, but this idea of you know, if you, kind of what Trevor was saying, if you really want to know what's going on in America, look through the eyes of Black folks, and also look through the eyes of little Black girls, right? Who, when you talk about intersectionality and multiple oppressions, and then they were pointing back to the little girl, Pecola Breedlove, in Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. And so I think of that when he talks about seeing and really understanding what's going on in this country. Who do we look to? Who do we listen to? Who has clarity? Black women. Not that others don't, but Black women have some clarity. So it spoke to me for sure.
I appreciated the way he started out saying how we have grand ideals. I mean, I just think how we always talk about mother wit. And a preacher the other day was talking about how things came from the book of Big Mama. It's like we always had insight and that creativity. We will always be able to make something out of nothing. That it was just in us to be able to take care of not just ourselves, but mostly others first, because most of the times we think about ourselves last. But that, yes, give us credit. Thank you, Noah, that we there. We hold it down. We have everybody's back.
Yeah, I think I was as moved in many ways that you all talk about here by what Trevor Noah said. I'm interested though, Michelle started off talking about absolutely, we know we have something to offer, but pay us. And Mate, you get right back to that same thing, giving us credit. There's a dynamism here though, right? Because each of you in your introductions, you alluded to this fact and sometimes more explicitly said, I have to do the work, right? That my survival, my thriving is dependent upon it. And that's the same thing that Trevor Noah was saying. And so the dynamism though is I do the work in part because I have to, right? A matter of my survival. And the other piece is, but give me credit and pay me for that work. And this leads me to thinking about the amount of invisible labor that Black women do, right? And at the same time, how for every determinant, Black women are not treated fairly or equally, whether we're talking about pay, whether we're talking about promotions. And this is across all of our social institutions. In our homes, we're expected to do twice as much, our careers, right? These sorts of things. Let's talk a little bit about this dynamism, right? About how much we know how we do it, what motivates us to do it, but at the same time, trying to balance out or come to grips with the invisible labor. Can we talk a little bit about that? How do you make sense of it? How do you create those boundaries? You know, you all are volunteers in a lot of ways, and you come, right, with such expertise, right? You embody that, and then you decide how to express that and offer it to the world. How do we come to grips with balancing the invisible labor that is chosen by you, but then the invisible labor that's also expected by you externally? Dr. Calenthy, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, I'm thinking about just an article that was, Michelle, you shared this piece as well. I think I saw it originally on LinkedIn, but talking about how Black women have excelled in every way. We're the most educated in terms of college degrees. Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the US for very specific reasons, right? So we excel. We're ahead in terms of groups of women who want to lead corporations. I'm not always sure why, but we lead in those areas. And yet, you know, there's the ongoing when the questions around psychological safety, right? I don't know if I've ever been in a workplace where I've felt psychologically safe, quite frankly. But also issues around having to work harder, right? Having to play extra nice, more nice than other people and other women in the organization. So again, you know, thinking about both of those things. So on one end, yeah, there is the invisibility piece, but what I see is I see Black women, you know, we are there. We are popping up everywhere and we're saying, you will see me, damn it. You will see me, right? Even though our labor is, folks try to make it invisible. People don't want to recognize us or acknowledge what we do. I see Black women saying no, you know, challenging that every step of the way. That's hard. You know, I think that whole workplace piece is really hard. And yet, you know, we're keeping up and we're surpassing in many ways. You know, what to do about invisible labor? I don't know. I'm going to leave that to one of my smarter colleagues here trying to answer that question because.
Well, and the smaller colleague is not me. I just want to say that the article is in Forbes magazine and it's called Black Women Leaders Are More Ambitious, but Less Supported at Work. And it comes from the findings of a study by Kinsey and Lean In. And so, you know, so as Dr. Calenthy has said, we're present, we are educated enough, you know, and competent enough, and yet there is this tendency to assume that that we got, you know, that we got it's ill-gotten gains in some way. I mean, and it's not even always like overtly stated. That's the ongoing harm, that microaggression and the macroaggressions that happens because some people have enough sense not to say it overtly, but they don't have enough sense to make their actions match their lack of words, right? There's another article that just recently, another study where it says Black women in the rich countries, when their babies will die, they will have a higher death rate in the first weeks of first days and weeks of a Black child's life. Not because the child is any more deficient than any other, but it's, again, when we talk about the areas of which the aggression, the oppression happens, the medical field is a big issue. You know, it's another place in which we must engage, and yet we go in. I mean, every time I go in, I'm chill most time, but every time I go in, oh, your blood pressure is a little high. It's not bad. It's a little high. I'm thinking, because I'm stressed out being in this joint. I mean, so so and so the question also you had indicated is like, how do you take care of yourself? And I think it's Roots of Justice is the place where I can come, and I'm with other Black women, and we know that each one of our Black womanness is unique and wonderful for each one of us, and we affirm who we are. We affirm our as Dr. Calinthia would say, our quirkiness. We're good with that, because we can be our authentic, quirky selves in predominantly white spaces. I work for a predominantly white faith-based organization. And so I can't be my authentic, quirky Black self. I push the edges, though. I do have to say, I do push the edge. But, because I operate out of I operate from a position as like, they are lucky to have me because I make them look good. And that's the way I have to carry myself, present myself, and it's the truth. But I also know that I need Regina and Mati and Calinthia and others, because I can only I don't feel that way all the time, right? I don't feel that way all the time, and so I need to have spaces to be that I can just be my authentic self.
We need to have the meeting after the meeting. I will say to the question of boundaries, right? So this is something that I have, that I didn't always do. I thought I had to show up to every request, and, and part of that is the urgency of the work. Part of it is feeling this responsibility. I said earlier that I do this work primarily for my and our children, our collective generations that are watching us and coming after us. But I also do it to honor my ancestors and our ancestors who did their work in their time. And so there is that sense of urgency that needs to be balanced with self-protection, right? And one of the boundaries that I started putting around my work so I'm in higher ed and I'm in the classroom, and I'm in peace studies and I teach about race, and I will do Racism 101 in that setting, in the classroom. But outside of it, I just had somebody contact me last week or week before last, and this wasn't the first time and probably won't be the last time, and I'm sure my sisters can resonate with this, a request to come in and speak to a group to help them understand their biases. And I don't do that. First of all, there's so much work. Yeah, even the language. So even the language was like, yeah, I'm not the one. I'm not the one for this particular assignment, because I don't do that. That's another boundary. I want to talk about systems and structures. I don't want to talk about your personal biases and make you feel better about having someone to come in and tell you these things. But there's so many resources out there that no one should have to show up. I mean, and tell the trauma stories. Like that was part of my interpretation of the communication that I got to talk about what it's like to be a Black woman, which is what we're doing now. But this was in a very different kind of context and setting. And it's like, no, you don't get my stories. You don't get my stories. That is a hard boundary for me. And it makes it possible for me, having that boundary makes it possible for me to be able to show up in the places where I need and want to show up and do the work in those settings. So yeah, that thing about boundaries and being clear about it. And because that's a boundary for me, it doesn't have to be a boundary for other people, but that clarity about what is possible for me to do what is worth my time and energy, given all the things that all of us do on the daily, that, you know, what is actually possible for me to do a good job at. Like, yeah, I could show up and at everything and be terrible at it, or I could be very selective and be useful in fewer places.
Yes. Well, personally, finding balance and boundaries was very hard for me. Working with the elderly, working with youth, dealing with my own stuff, family stuff. It wasn't until I almost broke down that I began to examine all the different ways I'm running and stretching myself. I had to pay attention that I was depleted. COVID helped because that shut everything down to really help me recognize just how much, oh, you don't have to be at everything. You know, it'll still be all right. You don't have to put yourself all the way out there all the time. Stuff will take care, or eventually stuff will catch up. People will wise up, you know, because my main job was, I mean, the main thing that upset me was people not doing their job, people in position, people I thought that could do better or in their position to advance the cause of equity or anti-racism, but they weren't doing enough. Out of fear, some of them, you know, for losing their jobs, or making some of them just not knowing how hard to push. So, and I would be there pushing them, you know, to finally just had to learn to fall back, learn to meditate, learn to breathe, learn to just let go. But it was challenging to get to that part, to get to that space and place. But I've arrived. I've arrived. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody's arrived. All right. No, you know, Dr. Monica, if I could just add, because the piece about our bodies, I think in different ways, each of us talked about our bodies, was the thing I didn't get, like, for a long time. And now as an old elder, okay, baby elder. No, I can't say baby elder anymore. As an elder, I get it, right? Because things began, years of doing this work and years of working in predominantly white institutions, and not really paying a lot of attention to my body, particularly as a young person, you know, my 30s, even in my 40s. But, you know, I feel this stuff in my body now in very conscious ways. And, you know, we talk about, I work in public health. Racism, for the first time, some part of the medical community is beginning to understand that racism is a public health issue. It really, really is. The evidence has been there for years. And now some parts of the medical community is recognizing that. But this quote, I often share this quote. You've probably heard it by Ta-Nehisi Coates, Between the World and Me. This last part of the quote goes, but with all our phrasing, race relations, racial chasm, racial justice, racial profiling, white privilege, even white supremacy, serves to obscure that racism is a visceral experience, that it dislodges brains, it blocks airways, it rips muscle, extracts organs, cracks bones, breaks teeth. You must always remember that the sociology, the history, the economics, the graphs, the charts, the regressions, all land with great violence upon the body. Man, the first time I read that, it lands with great violence upon our bodies. That's the part that you know, and I talk to younger folks who are doing this work, I tell them, pay attention to your body. And they do a better job now they talk a whole lot about self-care, quite frankly. They do a better job of talking about self-care than we did a million years ago when we started doing this work. We were just excited to have some language and to talk about institutional racism in these white spaces. And that, you know, we served our piece. And so, you know, time moves on and folks begin to realize something's happening to our bodies. We've got to talk about self-care. This racism lands with great violence upon our bodies. We've got to take care of ourselves.
Yes, and you know, and one of the things that I just really appreciate each one, because each one of you says something like, yeah, that's, yeah, oh yes, I need to remember that, and yes, thank you for reminding me about the boundaries piece, and yeah, and it, you know, it lands on our bodies and harmful ways, and but something you also did, Calinthy, is you also lifted up the voices of the young people, how we are even learning from them, right? Yeah, that self-care is important. We got to figure that whole piece out. You know, I know that I ain't got it yet. I'm still working through what this may look like. And that's what I really appreciate about younger people coming up. You know, that insistence that is uncomfortable because I've not really named it or claimed it in that way. And I also appreciate how young people are passionate, energetically passionate, because I may be passionate, but I ain't got the energy no more. That's the truth. And then I also think about how young people are providing us with new language, deeper language, language that allows for the multiplicity, the complexity, the, you know, marvelousness of what it means to be, you know, even what it means to be a Black woman, that it's multifaceted, and so I just really, I learned too at the feet of the young ones as well.
Mhm.
We have this quote that I'm sure is very familiar to everyone on the screen and listening in, from our sister Audre Lorde. Self-care, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. And there's one class that I teach that I start every semester with that quote, because, you know, we're in for a ride. We're going to spend the next 15 weeks talking about, reading about, thinking about terrible stuff. And we need to do it. We need to get through these 15 weeks, and we need to get through it and do our work, but we also need to get through it intact. And so thinking about what are the ways that we are going to individually and collectively take care of ourselves in body, mind, and spirit. And that is, I'm hearing from y'all, and I know it for myself, that it's a continual thing that we have to do. And Mati, when you mentioned meditation, girl, now it's such a habit that I cannot start the day without those moments of meditation and quiet and just like coming into myself for that day. And so those practices that we might think are, we don't have time or we don't have the energy. If I have 3 minutes, you know, it's better than no minutes.
Wow, thank you each for that. Certainly self-care is really important. And you all were making me remember that it was in 1998 that former President Bill Clinton declared racism as a national health issue. And he was at that point announcing the racial and ethnic health disparities initiatives of his administration at that point. I think it's also, and what resonates with me is you all saying that to take care of oneself, Audre Lorde, to take care of oneself is political warfare. And we think about the disparities in terms of access to care, you know, for women in general. And then you've got the duality of being a Black woman and the access or lack of access, and all the barriers that exist. Absolutely, healthcare has been politicized and race has been politicized. And so when you think about, you know, how we, our Black bodies, our Black female bodies, the barriers that just exist for us. So I appreciate all that you're saying there. Thinking about how you all have talked about your experiences and the boundaries that you've set and how you're caring for yourself, it brings to mind for me another Black woman who was in the news recently, our sister Brittany Griner. Anybody have some thoughts about Miss Griner? Anything you want to talk about there? Anything that comes to mind for you? Either her detention, the dynamics around, the conditions, what we knew about the conditions, she's a very tall woman, or her release. There's been some controversy about, why her, and I just think that's multi-layered, right? Woman, Black, gay, celebrity, right? So many facets of her identity that I think folks call into question. So has she been on your hearts or minds? What were you thinking about her experience and how we responded to it?
Yeah. I am thrilled that she is home. I want to say that, but I was trying to keep up with what was happening with Brittany Griner, because at moments things got quiet. And then the beautiful thing about social media, it's got its upside, was that every now and then somebody would toss out a Facebook post, remember Brittany, or Brittany Griner is still in prison in Russia. And so that was 10 months, wow. But I could see people trying to keep Brittany before us, and that was good. I was trying to keep Brittany before myself. I think at this point, and probably a lot of what's been said has been said, but it will be interesting. It sounds like she's ready to talk. I don't know about publicly, but she has said she wants to talk because she's been, she's been away and not talking for 10 months. And so I want to hear what our sister has to say. And what's next? She might not return to playing ball. So I'm curious about those things. But yeah, I do think, we could do a whole semester on all the layered issues around all sorts of oppression. People who felt like Brittany Griner got what she deserved. Come on, that she shouldn't have been traded for this criminal all sorts of things. And so human life is human life, and we got to do what we got to do to free all human life. And so that's my position on that. And I just want to hear what she has to say. I think that's it.
I really agree with, I like what you said. I want to hear her tell her story, because none of us are free until all of us are free. And that she's home, that was just moving. And you know what? I just really even resent having to make an argument for the couple of grams of medicinal whatever she had, that she had medicine that any place else she could have, just to make that argument is just so. And again, here we are as Black women needing to justify ourselves. It's crazy making. It's just absolutely crazy making. So I'm waiting to hear for the young sister. And that's it. I don't need to hear anybody talk about nothing else.
And this morning on Black Talk Radio here in Philly, WURD, they were just lifting up the fact that Brittany had no business being in Russia. The fact that she had to go there to get paid, properly paid, to play ball. Why was that? So yeah, we had that side of the story.
That goes back to Michelle's pay us. You pay the WNBA equitably, and then they don't have to go to Russia to play basketball.
And I think that the reaction to the whole 10-month saga from various places just shows what Black people and Black women are worth in this country. You know, you think about being a celebrity, you think about being an athlete, and all of the messages that we hear when, especially celebrities and athletes, make a stance on something. And it's like, oh, no, 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 we just want you to entertain us. You don't have opinions and ideas and thoughts. You are here to entertain us, and that's it. And we heard that at the beginning, right? We heard it when she was first arrested and detained and then imprisoned. And then it's ramping up again now with the trade. And so that rhetoric of what is a Black body worth? And really, that's the story of Black people on this landmass, right? What are you worth to capitalism, right? What are you worth to the entertainment industry? How much money can we make off of you? And stay within those boundaries. Don't do anything else. That's not what we're paying attention to you for. It's not what we're paying you for. Just stay in your lane. And so
who told you you had a right to who told you you had a right to your body?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, think about our enslaved ancestors who were criminalized for stealing their bodies, right?
Yeah. What resonates with me about what you said, Regina, for Black celebrities, Black ball players, Black athletes, you know, I think someone said, shut up and play ball, or shut up and dribble, something like that. But then we think about mediocre Tim Tebow, who had a platform with his kneeling and, you know, Christianity and all those sorts of things. And he was lauded, right, for that. And so there's this whole idea, right, this dynamism again around how are we going to use you? What is your worth to us? And the body, right, is that first marker of value, right? But one of the things that I love about, you know, having this conversation with each of you tonight is that you use your bodies, right? And that's kind of your point of departure, your identity as a Black woman, and doing this work and understanding and making those spaces, right? Some folks would look at being Black and woman as double jeopardy. But for me, as I hear you all talking, it's duly empowered, right? That we make a way, as Trevor Noah said, if you want to know, you all are the folks, right? So I'm going to make a hard left turn real quick, because I want us to spend maybe 3 or 4 minutes on a topic. Misogyny. Take a deep breath and think about it. Now, as you're thinking about this, I'll just say publicly, I am a Jill Scott kind of Black woman. You know that song, Black Brothers? Everything is good about a Black brother, whether he's doing what he's supposed to do or not. But we understand, right? So all of that to say, I'm plug my ears, you know, if you go too far about the brothers. No, but seriously, you know, I think, you know, there are these battles, right? We're fighting this battle because our bodies are Black. We're fighting these battles for space because our bodies, right? Our gender, we are women, right? And we need to navigate these spaces because we can't show up any other way than Black and woman, right? So I just talk a little bit about misogyny, please. You don't have to talk about your experiences. You can talk about the concept, but how do we navigate that? What do we do with it? What do we do with it?
Well, and I appreciate what you're saying, Dr. Monica, because nothing looks better in a pair of Wranglers than a Black man. That's what I know. So that's what I know. And then when they wear the boots, I mean, you know, so yes, you know, that being said, I do, you know, I think, and I don't want to make this as the excuse, but it is a reason and especially when you get into some of these Christian circles where the white supremacist theology and this patriarchy that has been subsumed by Black church in a way that Black women become the targets of misogyny, all in the name of Christ. You know, so, I mean, so that's a part of it that just really is, you know, and so I will be in spaces and I'm going to try to do my best. I'm going to do my best. But, you know, recently I had to like say, you know, I love them so much. I got to go. Because I cannot continue to be in this space and not get to the point where I would confront the issue, and it's mixed race space. You see what I'm saying? So so I've got to do what I think it's an issue, and I think it's an issue that men really need to, you know, find the space, create the space to really deal with this because really this misogyny, because it's hate, it's about hating, and they will say, oh, I don't hate, I've got sisters, you know, I got a mama. No, it's hating of women. And how do you hate that? What gave birth to you? I mean, that's all I'm going to say.
That's a lot. We'll chew on that a bit and digest it.
Well, you know, I think when I think about Black church, there are probably, you know, I left the Black church when I was 21, finished college, and I thought I have to find something different. I went to a very, in many ways, wonderful and loving church, but also, you know, not very affirming of women in leadership type positions. And I realized early, I'm a leader. Not because I chose to be, I just am. And so I have to walk in that. So, but I left the Black church for several reasons. One of them was, I wasn't affirmed in who I was. And I guess where I'm going with this is you can love, I still love the Black church. You can love somebody, and I've loved, I've loved my share of Black men, I'll just say that. But that doesn't mean that harm isn't done, right? So both of those things can be true. And I have some wonderful brothers in my life who are great friends. But whenever I begin to feel like I have to back up or suppress so much of who I am in order for them to feel powerful in who they are, then I've got to move on. I cannot be in that space. It's not good for me, right? So this comes down to this kind of, you know, like loving me and taking care of me thing. So yeah, misogyny is very real. And yet we can, you know, we can talk about love too, and care. But I cannot ignore it for the sake of love. I cannot. So you know, I'm going to have a coughing fit in a minute, so I'm going to stop. And go ahead. You want to come?
COVID gave me a gift. There's a church called The Gathering, a womanist church. And it's, you know, so and that has been that place where, you know, spirituality is spoken within a Christian context, but affirming Black women and LGBTQIA, and just people bringing themselves to that space, The Gathering, a womanist church. That has been a gift to me. And so I just want to put a shout out to The Gathering. And I want Regina to talk, because you know what? Regina has Black sons.
Yeah. I was thinking of them. And actually, when this conversation got started, this happened years and years and years ago, because all of my children. I have 4 children, 3 sons and a daughter, and they're all adults now. Like my oldest son is going to be 40 in a few months. But when one of my boys, it's been so many years, I don't even remember who it was, right? But it was during that time of you are shuttling children here and there in the minivan, you know, the whole 9 yards. And I had my son and a couple of his buddies in the back of the van. They're just talking. I'm not really paying attention. And I don't know what the comment was. I don't think it was a very egregious comment, but it was a sexist comment that I didn't hear. But what I did hear was my son saying, "You better not let my mom hear you talk like that." And I was like, yes, you know, it's just like, okay, we're doing our job. And the other thing that I will say is, you know, we've said it, y'all have said it a couple of times, like 2 things can be true at the same time. And misogyny is real, and we all need to fight it together. It doesn't mean that we hate men. It doesn't mean that we want them to like not be or any of that. It's just like, we need to do this work together. We are a community and we need to show up for each other. And just as racism has created a narrative and shaped behaviors around it, so has patriarchy. And so part of our work, part of our collective work to end all kinds of oppression is to look at those things simultaneously and all the other stuff, homophobia, classism, all of that stuff. And so there's so much, and the interrelatedness of those things, the intersections are really important for us to understand. And I think that one of the things that gets in the way is when we start to feel like if we pay attention to this, then we're not paying attention to that. Because it is hard to hold it all together, but we really need to hone our skills in being able to think about the way that these multiple oppressions solidify one another, and show up for ourselves and other marginalized people, and recognize the ways that I like am complicit in the marginalization of other folks. That's a part of the narrative as well. Like what am I benefiting from? What am I doing that is harming my siblings in this community or in this community?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. So we are within 10 minutes of our time winding down. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, and Jen has been looking at the feed from Facebook all night. Thank you so much, Jen, for taking care of our tech in the background and keeping me abreast of what's happening in the on Facebook Live. She shared with us a few things, a few affirmations, a lot of affirmations. One about being a younger Black woman. She says, "I appreciate you all for inspiring me and my generation to continue our work. Thank you." We do have a question too, a lot of other affirmations that we'll get to, but there is a question from someone in the audience that says, is there anything you're reading or any body practices that are giving you joy or delight these days? So what are you reading? What body practices are bringing you joy?
I just finished, it's just a little 3-hour, it's a short book. I listened to the Audible. She Came to Slay. She Came to Slay by Erica Armstrong Dunbar. And it's on the life of Harriet Tubman. It was just so wonderful. And Harriet Tubman has been my shero, but even more so, it's a wonderful book. Just more research done on the life of Harriet. And my takeaway from that, besides just being inspired by her incredible, amazing, audacious life, is that, you know, Harriet really did imagine what space could look like for Black people. she imagined creating spaces where Black people could live and be and thrive. And I mean, can you think about the time frame that she lived? I mean, that was some bold thinking. So it's called She Came to Slay: The Life and Time of Harriet Tubman. And boy, did she slay. She slayed.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a book. Thank you so much, Calinthia. That's going on my list. I read this book this summer, or I also listened to the audio as I would walk every morning. Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson, I think is her, no, Black Cake. I don't want to get the author's name wrong, but it's a novel. It's multi-generational and multiple narrators. It's a family saga. It's about food and culture and race and immigration. And it was just beautiful. It was one of those books that it's like I don't know how many 100 pages, but it's one of those books that when you're getting to the end, you're like already mourning that your time with these characters is going to be over. But yeah, and it's Black immigrant family, several generations, really, really, really good.
I would have to like make up something real quick because most of my time is spent at this point in my life is caring for my mother who is on a dementia journey. And so I have to say it's 99.9% of the time a good thing. And so to hear her kind of remember something and tell the story, and then I'm just there, and so those moments are precious to hear her story. And I created a playlist of those old gospel songs, and and I'll turn it on, and then I just hear her in a room singing, her voice craggy and needing to take multiple breaths, but that's what's giving her life. So that's what's giving me life today.
It is important to be present. And someone did ask a question, what are you all listening to? So some gospel songs to take you back and to strengthen you. Absolutely. Mati.
With the little Lizzo though, gotta have a little Lizzo.
Well, today is Tuesdays. On Tuesdays at noontime Eastern Standard Time, there's a thing called Community Healing Network that does these a lunch hour for just a time to pause and connect with ourselves and with others. I mean, and the spirit is Ubuntu. I am because we are, that our lives are wrapped up into one another. So it's just a space, but community healing net.org. There's a lot of resources for us. We have a thing called emotional emancipation circles. Yes, that just bring those together, addresses trauma.
Sal Bono as well.
Yeah, Sarah Bono is another word that we use. I see you. And there's another one. Now we have some called Fahudi. How do we say that?
Isn't it a Susu?
The Andika word for that symbol. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing it.
Are you talking about Sankofa? I mean, okay, so I know.
But the other word, sorry, y'all. That I don't have it right. But it's almost about, those who know have to do better. Once you know, you do better. What's that saying that we always have? When you know more, you do more.
When you know better, you do better.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that type of thing of learning. But communityhealingnet.org is a great resource.
Dr. Calinthia, you unmuted. We are we're within a minute. Do you want to take us out?
No. I was actually unmuting to say something connected to what Yvonne was talking about, but no, I don't have to take us out. I don't have any final profound word or anything like that.
Well, make the connection to Mati, Yvonne, and then I'll just read a few more of the comments as we end. How about that? To affirm you as on your journeys.
All right.
You're going to make the statement to connect with Marcia?
I'm sorry, I lost it. I'm peeking at my phone, so I need to-
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, lots of affirmations here. Someone affirmed what you all were saying about Brittany Griner. Now that she's home, accountability to the for the WNBA is necessary for the deplorable pay disparity. About misogyny with Black men. Misogyny is rooted in white supremacy. I love Black men too, but we'd be remiss if we did not examine the need for Black men to do their own healing work. It's not Black women's burden to carry the brothers. And that Black women defend and love Black men at all costs, but we don't always see that from them, the reciprocity there. Harriet Tubman was a fearless visionary. So I want to thank each of you for mentoring us tonight by sharing your journey, your bits of wisdom, the depth of who you are with us, free of charge. And so thank you very much for your contributions to the world, right? And to Facebook and to the world, and certainly to me, and for allowing me to be your moderator tonight. Again, Black women are executors. You've shown us that, you let us know that, whether it's by nature or by nurture, we have executive functions and we get things done because we cannot F around and find out. But the rest of the world can F around and find out. If they're following us, they'll know how to do it, what to do, and why to do it, because Black women are great leaders and spin the world on its axis. And I truly believe that you all embody that. And so thank you again tonight for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you for the work that you do on a daily basis. I affirm you, I applaud you, I raise you, and I lift you each, my Black sisters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you, Dr. Monica. Ashe.
Thank you,
Ashe,
Dr.
ashe,
Monica.
ashe.
Much
Thank you.
love, my
Thank you
sisters.
so much.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
Peace.
Peace.